Well, Donnarumma has responded with a lengthy social media post where he said, quote, "From the first day I arrived, I gave everything on and off the pitch to earn my place and defend the goal of Paris Saint-Germain. Unfortunately, someone has decided that I can no longer be a part of the group and contribute to the team's success. I am disappointed and disheartened." Well, when it has to do with anything PSG, we have to bring in our Julien, who I'm sure Nedum is very happy to see. But Jules, this is definitely getting nasty. It was all going well and good for both of them just a few months ago, winning the Champions League together and whatnot. Now we know PSG have signed Lucas Chevalier. We're seeing the two comments that Luis Enrique and Donnarumma have had to say. How did we get here?
It's a great question. I mean, I think we got here to start with by the fact that Donnarumma only had 1 year left on his contract. And with 12 months to go, PSG would not have let him go on a free, obviously. They had talks back in from January onwards about an extension. Donnarumma was quite clear on what he wanted financially, a big pay rise on a contract that is the last contract like he has in the club right now, in the squad. The others have, well, low wage base, if you want, with a lot of incentives. So Zabani, who just signed, for example, is on 4 million a year. That could go up to 8 million, depending on individual and collective performances. Donnarumma still had the old contract where he's on 10 million a year, and that's it. No more, no incentive. And the club wanted to change that. And for him to be like everybody else, he didn't want that. He still wanted to earn more money than the 10 million a year. He wanted around 15 million a year. And at some point, the club already, when things were not as good as what we saw in the second half of the season, we're thinking we need somebody different, somebody better with the ball at his feet, with better distribution. Sometimes Donnarumma puts us in trouble a little bit, under pressure, because his distribution is not good enough for this level, for what Luis Enrique wants the team to do. And as great and as amazing as Donnarumma has been on his line as a goalkeeper, with the ball, it was very different. And when Luis Enrique says we wanted a different profile, Chevalier is that different profile because he's much better with the ball at his feet.
Well, I know that Nedum's our VIP guest today, but Shaka, we're talking goalkeeper, so I have to come to you. What do you make of this situation and what Jules and both Luis Enrique have had to say?
Well, I sympathise with both camps here. And on the one hand, Donnarumma has kind of proven that he's one of the best goalkeepers in world football. You saw the importance of the team in PSG's Champions League win of last season. But with a year left on his contract, I guess he's entitled to ask for whatever he wants. That's his calling. PSG then have to make a decision as to whether they pay him that or not. Quite clearly, they've said no. They want to get some money back for him. So therefore, he's been made available for a transfer. And that's just part and parcel of being a football club and football business. Now, and again, Luis Enrique, again, well within his rights to not include him if they're determined to get rid of him by the end of the transfer window. They've already brought in Chevalier. Again, kind of thinking succession planning in that way. And now it's a standoff that I think has kind of escalated or been amplified. One, maybe because we're talking about the Champions League winners, the current Champions League winners. We're also talking about one of the best goalkeepers in world football. But other than that, this is just football business in any other day of the week.
Nedum, what do you think? Because as we were just pointing out, less than 3 months ago, it seemed like all was well and good in the hood, winning Champions League together, winning things in France together. Are you surprised with how it seems like it's ending between the two?
Not necessarily. I think the criticisms of Donnarumma have been apparent for a few years now. But the success that they had last season, obviously to mention him as well, in that back half of the Champions League, you can remember some of the big moments that he had, which propelled PSG through to the latter stages. But it wasn't necessarily stuff with his feet. And, you know, there's a camp that says it should just be about making saves. I totally get that. But when we're talking about a team that's just won the Champions League that want to try and get to the very next level, well, in 2025, it's having 11 players who are all very capable with their feet. And I know that you went to Shaka first because he's goalkeeper. I get that.
Listen,
but there's also a psychology to this because as the defender, if you trust your goalkeeper wholeheartedly, you play a different type of game. Because when you roll the ball back to them, you trust them to know that they'll make the right decision. But if there's any doubt whatsoever, you play a different type of game. So I think it's interesting it's like this. And for Donnarumma as well, in the post, it's weird how he says someone has decided that I cannot be part of the group. Is this about Enrique or is it about something else? Like, as Jules has said, from the financial side of things, is it coming from higher? And in reality, we might never find out.
Jules, what is it? Picking up on what Nedum said, is it Luis Enrique that's someone or is there more behind the scenes that we don't know about?
I think it's Luis Enrique, who, as we said, wanted a different profile, better with the ball at his feet, better on crosses. Let's not forget, I didn't say earlier in my first answer, but Donnarumma's main weakness is not so much the distribution where he's okay-ish. It's more that he doesn't come out on corners or wild free kicks. That PSG have conceded a lot of goals. Remember the season before last, the semi-final against Dortmund, for example, the quarterfinal against Barcelona when they still went through. But still, he has issues on crosses. And Chevalier has not those weaknesses. He's a younger goalkeeper. He will have more pressure on him. He doesn't have the experience that Donnarumma has. He hasn't won what Donnarumma has won, the Euro, the Champions. I get that, but PSG wanted to go in a different direction. Also because there was just no agreement with Donnarumma. I think if there'd been an agreement found 2 months ago, he would have stayed. The thing is, they just could not agree either on what that extension would look like. And I think right now, there's nobody to blame really, because there's a different profile that Luis Enrique wants. And Donnarumma had demands through his agent, Enzo Raiola. And PSG said no to the demands that they had financially. And maybe other clubs would say yes, maybe they would say no. But for Donnarumma, he would either stay and be on the bench the whole season at best, because he might even have been in the stands, or trying to find another club right now.
I've got to say, Jules is the perfect person for this, yeah? Because I don't know if he's told you this before, but he's Paris born and bred. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you know that, Shaka. I don't know if you know that. But he's Paris born and bred, yeah? PSG is his club. And the way that he's talking about this really shows that he's known for a while that maybe Donnarumma hasn't been the perfect goalkeeper for the situation. Because if he was, he'd be fighting to the death down that camera right now.
Oh, for sure.
But instead, he's more accepting of it and understanding that the team needs to find that change to go to that next level. And we're talking about distribution. He's talking about crosses, he's naming games, he's naming incidents, things which obviously Jules can't let go of. But he's the perfect person for it. And I think in some ways that he's great to have on this panel.
Jules, a tough man to please, especially when it comes to Paris and PSG. Who'd have thought? But Jules, speaking of this now, the stuff that you guys just mentioned as well, that Donnarumma has been criticized for not necessarily being that good with his feet. We look at the rumors that he was linked with Manchester United just a few weeks ago. Now we hear that Manchester City want in on him. But if it's one thing we know, Pep Guardiola loves a goalkeeper that's excellent with his feet. So why Man City, and what's the likelihood of that even happening?
Yeah, again, it's a great question. I mean, we talked a little bit off air before the show with Nedum about it. Right now, there are two clubs who are kind of keen on him. The first one is Manchester United, and the second one is Manchester City too. I think a lesser degree, although they are more advanced in their talk, especially with PSG and with Donnarumma's agent, than Manchester United. We still have the Onana issue. They need to obviously offload the Onana before signing Donnarumma. I mean, for City, they need to offload Ederson before even thinking about signing Donnarumma. But everything we just said about Donnarumma at PSG and what Luis Enrique didn't like, there is no way that Pep Guardiola would think, yeah, he's the goalkeeper for me. I mean, Nedum and I know Joe Hart really well, especially Neds. And Joe Hart was just not made for a Pep Guardiola style of football and team. Donnarumma is not really made for that either, for everything that we've just explained. So City to spend 15 million a year in wages, plus between 40 and 15 million pounds in transfer fee for somebody who is not really the profile at all for what Pep Guardiola would want and what Pep Guardiola has signed as goalkeepers before. If you look at Ederson, Ortega, and even Trafford now, they are better with the ball at their feet than Donnarumma will ever be. They're better on crosses than Donnarumma will ever be. And yeah, okay, on his line, he's the best in the world. There's just no doubt. Him and Courtois on the line, incredible. But for the rest, it's just not a Pep Guardiola player.
Nedum, what do you think of this? Because Jules is not the only one that has off-camera chats with you. We were talking about this, and there's not often that you question Man City or Pep Guardiola's decisions, but this is one that you questioned.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's because of what Jules has said, because we remember the time when Joe Hart, someone who is an icon for Manchester City, basically was told that he's not the right player for a Pep Guardiola side. And in terms of what happened in the years to come, yes, there were some issues with that, with, for example, Claudio Bravo. But this all led to an Ederson, somebody who's transformed the way that City play their football, a huge part of the success over the last, say, 5-6 years. So now you see Donnarumma coming in, and he feels like he has more in common with a Joe Hart than he does with an Ederson. And so I don't necessarily see that, especially with Trafford coming in. At the moment, you've got Ederson, you've got Ortega, and you've got Bettinelli coming in as number 3 as well. I don't see that angle. But to give Donnarumma credit, when that graphic went up, I forgot he's 26 years old. That is so young for a goalkeeper. So maybe if he is linked with the club in a realistic way, maybe Guardiola believes that he could turn him into something, which maybe isn't right now. But that's me really trying to be super optimistic.
Shaka, what do you think? Because you are our goalkeeping expert. 26 years old, still very young. He's not the best at his feet now in terms of what Pep would want, but is there plenty of time to mold him into that goalkeeper that Pep would want?
Not in the way that Pep would want. There's plenty of time to make him better with his feet, but not in the way that Pep Guardiola would want. And Nedum is right to bring on Claudio Bravo, because from the time this Donnarumma with Manchester City link kind of popped up, the first thing that came to my mind was Claudio Bravo, who came from Barcelona under Luis Enrique. A Barcelona that won the league with Claudio Bravo, but they played Ter Stegen in the Champions League. They also won the Champions League that year, I think I'm right in saying. Pep goes out, gets Claudio Bravo, and because of his inability to play with his feet, and saying that, Bravo was a little bit older when he arrived at Manchester City. Seeing that, I thought Claudio Bravo at that point was better with his feet than Donnarumma is right now, and still struggled to fit the bill for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. So it makes so little sense to me that Donnarumma is now linked with Manchester City. And to Nedum's previous point, it changes the way City will have to play. Because while Ederson was one of the best in the world with his feet, you can maybe question his shot stopping. It's a totally opposite dynamic with Donnarumma. So if PSG and Luis Enrique are trying to play in a different way, if Manchester City signed Donnarumma, they too now have to play in a very different way.
Well, Jules, you're close to all of the whispers and rumors at PSG, so finish this sentence for me. Come September, Gianluigi Donnarumma will be playing for?
Manchester United.
Oh,
you okay, Alexis? He's quite happy with that.
Yeah, he's just trying to keep you happy, sure.